for sports. So glad you could join us again today as we have a lot to unpack today. I'm Jeremy Duff II, running it back with Patrick Falcon, Luke Attal, and Luke Lamry as we recap this nail-biter of a primetime shootout that it was between the Tennessee Volunteers and the Georgia Bulldogs. We'll be discussing the positives of the Vols' performance, what needs to be corrected, and how the Big Orange move forward in the season, starting with their next home game against the Birmingham Blazers. And later on in this program, a different team will be up here bringing you up to date on Lady Vols soccer and volleyball, as well as the latest shakeups in the Associated Press College Football Top 25. So on that note, gentlemen, let's get down to business. With number 6 Georgia rolling into a hostile checker-kneeling environment, the Vols knew they had to deliver. Joey Aguilar, a.k.a. Joey Football, stepped up in prime time, throwing for 371 yards and 4 touchdowns, rushing for 1, but also accounting for 2 interceptions on the day. Despite that, the offense continued to make big plays, especially with Braylon Staley and Chris Brazel combining for 4 receiving TDs. The young kicker Max Gilbert was given a tall task to end the game with a walk-off field goal, which would be no good to the right, sending this game in overtime. The final dagger would come when Georgia's senior running back Josh McCray ran it in for the final score, breaking the Big Orange's hearts for the 9th consecutive year. 41-44 was your final in overtime. So, gentlemen, let's not waste any more time here. Let's get straight into the dive-in, because after a heartbreaking loss like that one, when the Vols gave it their all, but they still lost in the end, it almost makes you figure, where did this squad go from here?
I think you keep going up. I think that has been the direction the program has been trending in ever since Heupel got to the University of Tennessee, and especially in these past few years. You look at your performances since Heupel got here versus Georgia. 14.25 points per game. Average margin of defeat was 14. You put up 41 on Saturday. You lost by 3 in overtime, and frankly, you should have won. Even Kirby Smart said that I feel almost like we have to apologize. I don't think that we should have won that game. I thought Tennessee outplayed us in a lot of ways.
That's a heck of a quote from Kirby.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a quote.
You don't hear that too often.
Let that simmer.
I mean, that's the first time you're really competing with the Tier 1 SEC teams. You've always kind of been a step below. Even when Hendon was here, you got blown out by Georgia a little bit. You couldn't quite compete. You're competing with probably the best team in the SEC, if not a top 2 or 3 team. So keep going up. The offense continue to get better. It will continue with Joey as he gels with his new teammates, and then the defense will look a lot better once Jamal McCoy and Ricky Gibson are back.
Well, I mean, I'm right on the same page as you. Yes, it was a tough loss for the Volunteers. That's obvious. But there was a lot of positives to take away from this game, especially that first quarter. The first quarter of this game, offensively for Tennessee, was one of the greatest first quarters of football I've ever watched.
Got me fired up.
Joey Aguilar, 14 for 14 with 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown in a quarter.
Isn't that crazy?
That's an insanely good stat line. So there's a lot of positives to take and a lot of confidence to come from this game. And I think it's kind of funny that Aguilar did have a hand in every single touchdown that the Volunteers scored. Well, 4 passing, 1 rushing.
Absolutely. And I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm thinking the same thing for the Vols. You head first right into the future. And what's remarkable about that is that in the post-game presser, I know you're disappointed if you're Aguilar, but he's like, I think he said, I left a little bit out on the table out there. Did he really? Did he really?
He did about all he could do.
I mean, 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing. He went 24 for 36. I mean, what more could Aguilar have done?
Not a whole lot.
Not a lot. Definitely not a lot.
It was truly astounding. And I really, for coming into this new team, if you're Joey Aguilar, you have gelled so well with these teammates.
It's been so quick.
It's actually remarkable.
And for someone playing his first conference game in the SEC, that was a very impressive performance.
Absolutely. You went to overtime with a number 6 seed as a guy coming from UCLA, barely even played, and he just went to overtime with Georgia. I mean, I don't think anyone's actually truly processing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very impressive.
I will say it was a very impressive performance from Joey. But the thing I will say that we talked about last week that the Vols are kind of falling into is a little bit of stalling out once you get a lead.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. And after that impressive first quarter, the next 5 drives were punt, interception, punt, interception. That's a little bit of a stall out for the Volunteers.
We talked about that. It's going to have to be 60 minutes. And we thought, okay, maybe they trail off towards the end. Maybe it's the 4th quarter when they're up big. It was the 2nd quarter when they took a 14-point lead. I mean, you can't expect to score 21 every quarter. You're not putting up 80 a game.
But you cannot, against that team, you can't let off the gas at all. And like you said, we were talking about maybe near the end of it, you can't let off of it all. Even if you step back on that pedal, you can't let off the throttle at all.
100%.
Yeah, well, just going back to the last 8 matches between Tennessee and Georgia prior to this one, the margin of victory was Georgia by, I want to say, 20 points or 30 points. It was double digits every game. So this was a very impressive performance by Tennessee, just coming like a field goal short of defeating the Bulldogs, and in overtime too. That is something to definitely be proud of looking forward into the future. And despite not getting the result they were hoping for, the Volunteers still had much to be proud of from a lot of their key players. For more on that, let's send it down to our play-by-play crews for today, Lucas Rice-Weber and Nick Rose. What do you got for us?
Thank you, Jeremy. There was a lot to unpack from this Volunteers offense despite the loss. And there's a lot of key players, but I want to focus on the obvious, the connection between Chris Brazel and Joey Aguilar II. They have the go routes going, targeting these key matchups every single game, these one-on-ones. It works. If you can win those one-on-ones, that is what makes the difference in these conference games. And we see this later in the third quarter. We have a very similar situation. Just heaves that God bless the go route. This is a perfect throw, perfect catch, perfect defense. This is perfect football. This is exactly what I want to see out of this connection with Joey Aguilar and Chris Brazel. Look for it more in the future. But look at how he lodges this in between his elbow and his helmet. I mean, foot in the face. I'm looking forward to this. I think there's a lot of progression.
Nasty head top. On the defensive side, junior edge Caleb Herring was a monster for the Vols against Georgia. Here he is down here in the wide 9. He times this snap perfectly. Jumps, the right tackle has no choice but to just push him. He sacks Gunnar Stockton on this RPO in the red zone.
We love to see
Perfect timing on that. Now on this play here, a little bit of run play. See the pulling tight end. He dips underneath that block and gets the running back and slams him down for an emphasis on that TFL. And phenomenal game from him. Ozzy.
Oi, oi, oi!
Jackson Ross with a cannon of a leg takes a favorable bounce. Is that a bird? Is that a plane? It is Bennett Brady on the goal line, keeping this ball alive and helping the Vols down it inside the 3, Lucas.
This ended up being a punt from the Georgia's 23, the difference maker, like we talked about special teams last week. That's your play to breakdown for this week. Right back to you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, guys. Adding on to this discussion about Tennessee's performance against UGA, who stood out to you as the most outstanding player from this game?
Oh, that's a really easy choice for me, and I'm going to go with Chris Brazel. I think Chris Brazel is the guy for Tennessee right now, outside of Joey Aguilar. But Brazel against Georgia, 177 yards and 3 touchdowns from a wide receiver. You don't see that a lot, and he's been doing that all season. Brazel's a guy, we talked about Tennessee needing explosive plays this season and how we didn't really see that from the Vols in the past couple seasons, and that needs to change. Well, Brazel's the guy that's getting that done. His explosive plays are everywhere. He averaged 29.5 yards per catch against Georgia. 30 yards a catch. Those are explosive plays, and those are the kind of plays that gave Tennessee momentum.
That's exactly right, the momentum.
That was a huge factor for the Vols getting the lead early against Georgia in this game. And just beyond this game, he's got 364 yards on the season, 5 total touchdowns, and 18.2 yards per catch. Statistically, he's one of the best wide receivers in the country.
And it's consistency as well. The Tennessee kind of had that deep shot last year with Dante Thornton, but it wasn't as consistent. It was kind of streaky. It was maybe once every other game you'll get like a 50-yard bomb, and that will help bump his average up to around 20. But Brazel's making plays every game.
Well,
like
it's also helping that those balls are ending up right in the breadbasket. We have to appreciate that for a little bit.
100%.
But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I won't be afraid to say I'm throwing his name in for the Blitnikoff this early.
That's not crazy.
He's number 2 in receiving yards, number 1 in
That's not
touchdowns.
crazy at all.
So I'm putting him right up in that conversation. I know there's a lot of Joey for Heisman talks from Tennessee fans, but I think we should be talking Brazel for Blitnikoff.
I love that. Speaking of the drinking the Kool-Aid, I'm going to go Joey Aguilar. Not to be redundant, but I mean, 24 for 36, 371 yards, 5 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But if you look at those 2 interceptions, one of those wasn't really his fault. Braylon Staley, unfortunately, slipped on the route, causing a little bit of an overthrow there. I'm not going to blame that one on him. What really stands out to me is the situation he came into. With he who shall not be named leaving in the offseason, kind of abandoning this program after a not-so-great year. He comes in and people are saying, he can't do it. He can't do it versus SEC opponents. Oh, yeah, sure, Syracuse and ETSU, we'll give you that. But not versus Georgia, not versus the Bulldogs. And what does he come in to do? He comes in and silences every single doubter there is. There is no question who Tennessee's quarterback one is now. There's no question who the leader of this offense is now, and that's Joey Aguilar. And a play that stands out to me, 3rd and 8, under 2 minutes left. You're on Tennessee's 27. You need a big player, else you're going to punt it back. Georgia might be able to get a field goal, end this thing in regulation. Throws a 12-yard out route seed to Braylon Staley to extend the drive and get them in field goal range. Obviously, we know it didn't end up well, but Aguilar put them in position to win.
So if I could pose you a question, though. You mentioned those 2 interceptions. does he almost need those 2 interceptions?
I think a little bit, because I don't think you want him on a leash. I think a lot of the problem we saw last year with Nico was he was very jittery, and you still see that at UCLA. But Aguilar wants to push the ball downfield, and you're not going to have those one-on-one shots to Brazel where he can go make a play. And if you're not taking a couple chances, maybe you shouldn't be taking.
I'll say, in a way, I feel like those interceptions kind of settle the nerves because you're not perfect anymore. You've made some mistakes, and now you can go out and play without worrying about making mistakes.
And he bounces back. He threw an interception, next 2 drives, touchdown, touchdown.
Exactly.
And there's so much pressure coming in for Aguilar. New system, new quarterback, big team. That maybe eases off some of that weight on his shoulders there, saying, hey, I can throw 4 interceptions. I can run, or excuse me, I can throw 4 touchdowns, run another touchdown, and I'm still gonna have some interceptions. I'm not gonna be perfect, but here I've got 5 other touchdowns to make up for those 2, and I think that does a lot for not just him, but the Tennessee fans who were in his ear, 102,000 of them in Neyland Stadium. So I'm going to look. You guys made some great points on offense. I'm going to take a look at defense here because you can't have this game without the defense. There's that famous quote: "Defense wins championships." I'm looking at Colton Hood. I mean, he's a sophomore, 11 tackles so far on the season. He made some absolutely clutch tackles. He's a Colorado transfer, and he's just such a powerful force. We saw him, obviously, the Syracuse scoop and score week 1. But, I mean, look at him just chopping the knees out of Gunnar Stockton. You love to see it. He's explosive. Wherever he's playing, he just comes in, and he's a guy that you're going to want out there pretty much every play. And for a sophomore transfer, you can't ask for much better than that.
And the DB was a vulnerable position in this game.
It was
a very vulnerable
You're
position.
missing McCoy. You're missing Gibson. Ty Redmond's a freshman, but here comes Colton Hood, and I can't ask for any more of him in that spot.
It was a very competitive game, and a lot of those players and more, they truly gave it their all for Tennessee. And while it was a hard-fought game, it doesn't mean it was perfect by any means. There were several players that made mistakes, and I mentioned the 2 interceptions by Joey Aguilar, which are the first 2 that he's thrown this season. The team as a whole, 5 for 12 on 3rd down conversions, and get this, 10 penalties for 82 yards. Now, I get it. It's a very competitive game, a rivalry game. The emotions are high, through the roof, but it comes down to this. You absolutely cannot make those kinds of mental mistakes, especially against a conference foe like Georgia. So obviously, they have some problems to clean up. But the real question is, where do they start? Which problems need the most attention first?
Luke, what's our favorite word on this show?
Fundamental.
Discipline. That's what we talk about it every week. And I know it's kind of an overspoken topic about on this show, but like that's the most important thing right now for
and
Vols,
it's so undervalued. It's so undervalued in this age of football. The ability to sit there and say, "We're going to run this drill until we get it right. We're going to keep conditioning until we are in prime position." And I just. Maybe it's me and just I love the old time football way, but just get out there and run the drill until you get it right.
Stop being soft.
Exactly.
Stop being soft.
If you're on the line, watch the ball until it moves. I mean, it's so underappreciated, and it's such a valuable topic. And if you don't have the fundamentals and you don't have that discipline, you're not going to win the ball game.
And it's little things that lose games.
I took your
you're
rant.
good. No, you're good. I set you up for it.
You say fundamentals, and I get impassioned.
You should, but like you mentioned, Jeremy, it's little things that lose games, and the penalties were a big factor for Tennessee in this one too. Georgia had half the amount of penalties; they had 5 for half the amount of yards. So if you're looking for differences in this game, both teams had a high-powered offense. Defense struggled a little bit on both sides, but the penalties is where there was that separation. So that has to be looked at for Tennessee.
And penalties are one thing, and I already went on my little rant, so my whole thing was fundamentals and discipline and penalties as well. But I'll tell you this, I think that if you're looking at those penalties, one of those drives where all of a sudden you're giving up a 30-yard PI call or a 10-yard holding to put them in field goal range, those are things that put points up on the board for Georgia. And so if you're looking at UAB, you can't come in there if you're the Vols and say, "Oh well, we just went to overtime with Georgia. We don't really care about this game." You go in there and you work and you play hard and you go until the end.
That's what great teams do.
Exactly. And I don't really care about the idea of running up the score. I think that, and obviously there's a limit to that, but I think that you go out there and you play a full 60 minutes, and if you don't, get off the field.
I agree. I'm going to look at the defensive side of the ball here. Tackling. Tackling is one of the most fundamental things that you can do as a defense, and Tennessee struggled badly with it. There were so many missed tackles. We saw it in the first or the beginning of the second quarter, I believe, that 36-yard touchdown to Branch. I mean, it's a couple missed tackles, and that guy's gone. And you can't do that versus really, really highly powered offenses like Georgia's was this weekend. And then when you can't tackle as your cornerbacks on these screens, especially receivers, you can't tackle receivers, then you have to stack the box a little bit more. Or then you have to widen out a little bit more. So Tim Banks kind of got in this chess match with Mike Bobo and Kirby Smart because on the outside, Tennessee wasn't tackling. So then when you get to a drive that's a 14-play touchdown drive with 13 run plays because you're so widened out because you need a couple more guys out there to stop Zachariah Branch because you're missing tackles, that's what happened. I mean, it was so bad. My girlfriend looked at me, she went, "Are they allowed to run the ball every play?" I mean, it was something I've never seen before because Tennessee had to widen out so much to account for everything going on outside that they couldn't make up for it in the middle. And then that increasing and stopping the run, when they start stuffing it in the third and fourth quarter, that's when you get those passing interferences because Ty Redmond's getting caught behind a little bit or Colton Hood's getting caught behind a little bit.
I think another thing to look at is those key plays you're talking about, making those tackles. Those key plays, let's take a look at, I mean, you had that Hail Mary when it was 30-38. You score from about 40, 50 yards out, and then they make the two-point conversion. Georgia punches in the two-point conversion. If you've got the lights on you, if you've got 102,000 roaring down on you, you have to sit there and say, and I know we've got a defensive back the defensive back is a little light right now. I think it's a nice way of putting it, but at the same time, if you know all of a sudden there's a primetime play about to happen, you have to lock in and you have to make those tackles. Good point, Patrick.
100%.
Well, have you ever heard the saying, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn? I'm sure that this squad really wanted to end that streak against Georgia, but things didn't go their way. But this does present a lot of learning opportunities so that they can better themselves for the long run because there is still a lot to play for left in the season, and we will get to that in just a moment. So stay with us as we'll be discussing some big-time matchups that remain on Tennessee's schedule. For now, here's Mateus Fotherath with a deep dive of Tennessee Athletics' decision to switch from Nike to Adidas starting next year.
After a decade of donning the swoosh, the Tennessee Volunteers are making a historic return to the three stripes. For months, the switch back to Adidas as the school's athletic sponsor had been long rumored throughout the summer of 2025. And now for Vol fans, that rumor has become a reality. Starting July 1st, 2026, Adidas will become the new school-wide sponsor for Tennessee. So why have so many Tennessee fans on social media been skeptical about the move? Well, some say that Adidas' overall design and quality simply lack compared to Nike. But there's also another major concern with Adidas that's gone relatively unnoticed throughout the years. Because while Adidas is one of the most popular sports brands in the entire world, especially when it comes to sports like soccer, here in the United States, with sports like American football and basketball, Adidas' foothold simply does not compare to Nike's. In fact, as of 2025, out of all Power 4 schools, that's the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10, Adidas sponsors 12 out of the 68 teams compared to Nike's 44. And in fact, the last Adidas-sponsored school to win a national championship in football was the Tennessee Volunteers back in 1998. And ever since then, every national champion in football has been sponsored by Nike, apart from Auburn in 2010 and Michigan in 2023, who are technically sponsored by Jordan, which is still under the Nike umbrella. To be quite frank, it's very rare to see the three stripes on top of the college athletics world, so naturally, there's going to be some hesitation about this move to Adidas. However, with Adidas stating that it is directly providing Tennessee athletes with NIL opportunities and prioritizing Tennessee as one of its flagship programs, top recruits may feel a more personal connection for future success both on and off the field. But once again, will the dominance of Nike's success culture in college athletics overshadow the loads of investment that's being put in by companies like Adidas? Or does money really talk first in this changing landscape of NIL? I'm Mateus Fotherath, reporting for Torch Sports.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the show. The Tennessee Volunteers will look to get back on track this weekend, taking on the UAB Blazers for the sixth time at 12:45 p.m. in Neyland Stadium. To bring you up to speed on who is in and who is out for tomorrow, here's Jay King with our injury report. What do you have, Jay?
Yeah, how's it going, everyone? Let's take a look at the injuries affecting both teams this Saturday. Starting for the Vols, SB Nation's Rocky Top Talk says that wide receiver Radarius Jackson suffered another body injury that will keep him out for this matchup. Cornerbacks Ricky Gibson and Jermon McCoy join Jackson as they will both be out this weekend yet again, with Gibson still dealing with his upper body injury and McCoy still recovering from his ACL tear early last offseason. Freshman O-lineman David Sanders has been suffering from another ankle injury, which has been unique according to head coach Josh Heupel. This will make him questionable as he still has yet to make his much-anticipated debut. Defensive tackles Jackson Moy and Davin Hobbs are both day-to-day with an upper body and a foot injury respectively. Moy looking like he will be coming back sooner. Finally, edge rusher Tyree Weathersby looks to be cleared from an undisclosed injury as he was able to record snaps versus Georgia. Now on to UAB, where their injury report on Covers.com has everyone questionable and undisclosed players listed. This includes defensive lineman Nigel Tate and Peter Simmons, linebacker Braxton Davies, safety Love Kirby, running back Drew Patterson, wide receivers Jalen Holmes and Levi Brayton, and offensive guards Kyrick Mason and Mason Chork. This has been your injury update. Now back to you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Jay. Now that this game has come and gone, let's take a look at the remaining schedule for the Tennessee Volunteers. So we'll get the graphic up here in just a moment. We do have UAB this weekend. And pay attention to the next game. That is Tennessee's first true road test against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. You have a bye week there, come back home against Arkansas. And look at this gauntlet. 2 straight road games between Alabama and Kentucky. You come back home to face Oklahoma. You got your second bye week there and then you go against New Mexico State, debuting new smoky gray uniforms there. And take a look at this. On the road at Florida late in November, and then finish it at home against Vanderbilt. Now, don't sleep on Vanderbilt now, because they're a top 20 team right now. Diego Pavia is leading them to undefeated record. So, not a sleeper team by any chance. Now, UJ might have looked like the Vols' biggest challenge, but there are some remaining games on here that look to be just as challenging, and several teams that are looking to have a shot at giving the Vols a run for their money.
The first one that I look at on that is Florida. And every year, Florida gives Tennessee some trouble. And yes, this year, Florida doesn't look like the same team they maybe looked at in the previous years. But we said that about Georgia in weeks 1 and 2. And they
100%.
came around and just, ended up getting the win in Neyland. But any time that Tennessee goes down to Florida and plays in the Swamp, that's a tough place to play.
It's a tough place to play against a team where Tennessee has trouble. That is a recipe for a little scariness.
And Lagway looks like he might have taken a step back from last year, but he's still a solid quarterback. He has a lot of good play in him, and that's going to be a tough one for the Volunteers, especially since it is a road game at the end of the season.
If we're looking at the whole schedule, I'm looking at Alabama here. This is obvious. Let's just chop it up right there. It's Alabama. It's a tough game. You're looking at a team here where Tennessee went 0 for 16 up until 2022. It's a bad pass, and sure, DeBoer is not the same coach as Saban, but definitely a team where you're looking at Bama on that schedule and thinking this one might be, I don't know. There's definitely, in my opinion, there's definitely a team on that schedule where there's a loss, and I think it's either that or I think it's Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a very good team this year. I think it's Bama. Bama's scary to me.
That third Saturday in October always
Saturday
hits.
in
Always
October.
hits.
Isn't that we can take a look at all the names of rivalry games. That, by far, to me, is the best.
I love it.
Yeah, you mentioned the 2 rivalries between Florida and Alabama. Those 2 games are going to be big because Tennessee has not beaten Florida or Alabama at their stadium since 2003. So that is going to be a big one just for those reasons alone. But what do you say, Patrick?
Yeah, I want to flash back to week 1. The Vols had just trounced Syracuse, and we're like, let's watch some college football. So what do we turn on? We turn on the best game at the 3:30 window, Florida State, Alabama. And we watch Alabama get dominated. And all the Vols fans go, praise the Lord. Alabama's gone. They're done. And the only thing they have done over the past 3 weeks is look at you who's watching, myself, and go, guess what? We're still Alabama. Ty Simpson looks like someone said something about his mama. 24 for 29, 382 yards, and 4 touchdowns last week. Ryan Williams appears to be back, 5 receptions, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns. There was a lot of chat about him not being the same since the Georgia game last year. Well, he looks like he's back. Alabama defense looks great, too. 2 interceptions. I know we want to talk about Kalen DeBoer, his offensive-minded coaching, but this defense is scary, too, man. And going down to Tuscaloosa, like you said, we haven't won there in 22 years.
Yeah.
Tennessee doesn't have the Neyland effect.
Those are 2 away games where you're looking at the schedule and thinking, one of those is, what did you say the year was?
2003.
2003.
Well, that's before I was born.
I wasn't alive.
That's the year I was born.
None of us on this table are alive in 2003.
Wow.
Can we just sit with that for a second? We were not conceived in 2003.
None of us have seen.
I was.
You were.
But
anyway,
you mentioned Bama as well. It'll be fun to watch this coming weekend because they go down to Athens.
It'll be big
that is
showing.
going to be a very big test to see if Bama really did bounce back or see where they stand there because that's a tough away game for them. So it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, well, considering the remaining matchups on this schedule and this previous loss to Georgia, I was really expecting a lot of negative feedback and interactions with the Volunteer fan base on social media, but they're actually hopeful the rest of the season, some even claiming that they're a, quote, playoff team. So that really makes you ponder, like, how far can Tennessee go this year? What is the floor? What is the ceiling? What do you think?
I'm looking at the ceiling, and this is a little ambitious here, but again, we're looking at ceiling. Tennessee has already lost a game, and I think in some land, maybe Tennessee only loses one more. I think my ceiling is 10-2 here, and we talked about those 2 games. Tennessee has not won since 2003. Tennessee versus Alabama and Florida. I think one of those games, unfortunately, you're going to have to drop. And Tennessee is known to drop some of these games where you're thinking maybe you might win this one. So I think if you're looking at the ceiling for me, it's 10-2, and I think Tennessee would have to put a lot together. And for a team where you're looking at a new quarterback this year, it would be remarkable to go 10-2. But the floor for me, I think you got to go 8-4. I think if you're looking at the schedule, Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida are tough tests, and then Tennessee lost to Arkansas last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas is a good team this year. They're looking really good. Those are my 4. Maybe you mix and match somewhere else. Tennessee drops another one, but again, I think the floor is 8-4.
I understand that the floor is supposed to be the bottom of the barrel, but I don't know how you can look at this team and say that the floor is 8-4. I think the floor is higher than that for this team. With the way the offense is clicking right now, and the defense missing 2 star DBs, but still putting up a pretty good showing in the first 3 games, I think the ceiling is 11-1. I think the Vols really could win out the rest of this year. I think the floor is more 9-3 in that range. But I don't think it's crazy to say that the Vols could win out. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if you're going to lose a game, this game was the game to lose. People were saying that it was going to be a blowout. People were saying Georgia was going to come in and roll over Tennessee. You played arguably better than Georgia in that game. And you had a chance to win. You just didn't put it away. But that loss looks really good on a resume, and I think there's a lot of confidence that the Vols are going to ride the coattails of that confidence for the rest of the season. I don't think it's crazy to say that they don't lose another game.
I agree with you, Luke. I mean, you look at your remaining schedule, and what team's tougher than Georgia? I mean, that game at Bama is going to be tough. Game in Florida is going to be tough. Those Arkansas and Kentucky games, those 2 scare me a lot. I think the big test for Tennessee, if they want to reach their ceiling, which I also believe is 11-1, can you overcome that classic Tennessee misstep, that Arkansas loss last year, that 2022 South Carolina loss in the final game when you're supposed to make the college football playoff? If Tennessee could do that, which I think they have the ability to, I mean, you look at this roster, you look at the talent they're putting on the field while missing their 2 top corners, I think that is all possible, and I think you can look at SEC championship here. I mean, you look at the conference landscape. I mean, schedule isn't super hard, and every team in the SEC looks vulnerable. I mean, you look like you could beat Georgia last week. LSU looks human. Texas looks human. Bama's already lost a game. Oklahoma, they look pretty good, but they still look human. So what is that push going to look like for Tennessee? Can they really put it away? I think should be the real question here.
Yeah, but going back to the Georgia game, can they really put away big games, especially 100%. With some that you've already mentioned, Alabama and Florida, etc.? And listening to you guys saying 10-2, 11-1, SEC championship playoffs, obviously there is still a lot of optimism and hope for the Volunteers this season because, like I mentioned previously, they still have a lot to play for.
I mean, it's the Josh Heupel effect. You don't get that without Josh Heupel.
100%. He deserves a ton of credit for the way he's turned around this program.
That is exactly right. And speaking of championships, the quest for a championship continues with the next contest, that being this weekend against the UAB Blazers. Now, former quarterback of the Florida Gators, Jalen Kitna, he has been the man for Birmingham since last season. He comes into Knoxville averaging 2 touchdowns and almost 300 passing yards per game. Their rushing receiver and receiver core, highlighted by Javon Jackson and Corey Milliner respectively, both of those guys have 3 touchdowns on their own. So UAB has no short of weapons. So what can we expect the challenge to be from the Blazers? What kind of firepower are they bringing into this matchup?
Well, it goes back to the DBs for Tennessee. If you have a guy like the UAB quarterback who's slinging it and putting up numbers consistently, they're going to be targeting the Vols DBs. And if I'm the UAB coach and I'm looking at the film from this last Tennessee-Georgia game, I hate to say it, but I'm targeting Ty Redmond.
100%.
I'm putting the best wide receiver against Ty Redmond, and I'm throwing the ball there the majority of the game. That's what Georgia did, and they worked. Redmond's a freshman. He doesn't have a ton of experience. And so by targeting him, you're opening up a lot of your playbook. And with the weapons that UAB has, I think that's going to be their game plan going into this game.
Yeah, I think the weapons can't be lost on what UAB has. They're averaging 36 points per game. And like you mentioned, Jalen Kitna, he's throwing for almost 300 yards a game. This guy's good. He was the guy who was at Florida, so he has experience. I think another big thing, he's been to Neyland before. He's seen all the SEC crowds. Now, has he played in them? Not really, no. He was more of a backup third stringer on Florida, but he's been there. This crowd noise is not going to be new to him. But playing it is different, of course. But he's also a big dude. I mean, he's 6'5", 225. He's a big, sorry, not sure your line, Luke, but that's a big fella at quarterback. I mean, that's going to be a hard guy to take down. So he can punish those DBs like you guys were saying.
I had Kitna written down as well, and 300 passing yards a game. And again, UAB's not playing these opponents.
But no matter what level, that's
but
impressive.
No matter what, exactly right. That's an impressive number. But for me, the UAB defense is just abysmal. I mean, they gave up 42 points and 500 yards against FCS Alabama State. I'm not worried about this Vol offense. I think if you're UAB, I think you're looking, like you said, at the DBs, but you're also looking at Kitna, who has been in Neyland, who's heard the noise. And I think an underappreciated point for Kitna is not just he didn't have that many reps on the field, but I think he understands what it's like to when you walk in those gates and hear that jet engine level noise, that you know exactly what it's going to be like when you walk in that stadium. I
mean, you could say we're not worried about the Tennessee offense, but that's not what we're looking at. The offense played great last week. The offense is not what needs to be cleaned up. It's definitely the defense. So when we want to watch those fundamentals,
and that's my point.
That discipline, you need that defense to show up. That Vol offense, I mean, we've kind of seen enough from them already, I would say.
I'm not worried about the Vol offense at all. I mean, if anything, I'm looking at injuries. I mean, let's get our guys to the next game.
Yeah, the Blazers are sure to bring some competitive fire into this game, but this is also going to be a great opportunity for Tennessee to really get themselves back on the right track to prepare for the next conference stretch that lies ahead. And we will return later on with the show, bringing you our final thoughts for the Volunteers contest with the Blazers. But in just a few moments, a different crew will be guiding you through the latest Lady Vols news, as well as the discussions about the AP Top 25. Stay tuned.
Why is just a starting line? For the true self blooms only when we find our purpose, what makes us tick, below the surface. Our reason why is united, undivided, seeking understanding. My why is diversity and unity, a safe space in my community. It's a million faces in a mirror, and everyone belongs. Find your why for a better us.
Imagine a disease that affects more than 10 million Americans, yet few know its name. I'm talking about lymphedema, LE. Many people, like my mom, get it as a result of cancer treatment and afterwards face a lifetime of swelling and pain. The cruel irony is many times its severity can be lessened only if you learn about it and act in advance. If you're at risk, ask your doctor about lymphedema. Take this as your chance to learn and live.
We are the Tennessee Volunteers. And now is our time. Time for unbeatable experiences, for bold innovation, for historic moments. It's time to do what Vols do best. More life-changing research, more problem solving, more lighting the way. We have what it takes. It takes a volunteer.
Welcome back to Torch Sports. I'm your host, Charlie Fernandez, and with me today is Delaney Leary, Chance Jones, and Taylor Langford. We have a whole lot to talk to you guys about today. We'll be discussing Lady Vols soccer, the new AP poll coming out, and Tennessee volleyball now being ranked. The Lady Vols soccer team came out to a blazing hot start to begin the season, remaining undefeated through their first 7 games. However, that run would shortly come to an end. After previously being ranked #1 in the nation for the first time in program history, the Lady Vols lost their first match last Friday in Starkville in their SEC opener against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Guys, what does losing to a previously unranked opponent in the first game of conference play mean for the team's momentum moving forward?
Well, I think it certainly hinders it a little bit, but last night they did have a really good bounce-back win against Missouri, and I think that's a great testament to their mental toughness. You have to be mentally tough to play in this conference no matter what sport you're in. Bouncing back last night convincingly against a team like Missouri is good. You have to keep that up. You have to stay mentally tough. You have to stay physically tough because the season's it's going to get tougher as it goes on. This is the SEC. This is big boys. This is big leagues.
Right, yep.
You have to stay mentally and physically tough, and I think this Lady Vols soccer team is more than capable of doing just that.
Yeah, of course, definitely. I think another thing is you have the #1 effect. You know, the Lady Vols took down #1 UNC in their first game of the season, and I think it goes back to kind of last year when the basketball team was ranked #1, and after that, their offense just came out kind of stagnant. You saw it in the Elite Eight game against Houston, and I think that's what we're kind of seeing with the Lady Vols soccer team now. First SEC matchup, they go into Starkville, lose against Mississippi State. They concede their first goal of the season as well. I think there's too much pressure on them. Last night they did beat Missouri 2-0, but I think I think they can definitely cool off after this loss, and there's not as much pressure on them.
And I'd like to credit Mississippi State. They were a good team. They had votes for the top 25 the week before coming into this game. Last year they went 19-3, 17-3. They were a good team. They've bringing a new head coach, Nick Zimmerman, this year, hoping to do the same thing, and they did. And they got a big win. They took advantage of us. We were sloppy. We got up 2-1, and then we just tried to rely on the defense, and it just didn't work out. They outplayed us. They out-hustled us and took advantage of those weaknesses. And like you said, though, we bounced back better last night. So,
As I said before, the Lady Vols has shut out their opponents in 7 consecutive games. Guys, does giving up their first goal take the weight off keeping the streak alive, or does this put them in a hole moving forward?
I would like to first start off by saying Kaden Norris has done a phenomenal job, almost 7 consecutive shutouts for the Lady Vols. That's incredible that Kaden did not let any goals in for the first couple of games of the season. That's remarkable, but you do have to admit, we have to admit, that it is unrealistic for not just the soccer team, but any athletic team ever to go an entire season without letting the opponent score.
Absolutely. At some point, it's going to get broken up.
Yeah, at some point it's going to happen. And I can't help but feel that maybe there was a slight added layer of responsibility and pressure on Kaden Norris to keep that streak alive, when really going into it as the goalkeeper, that's probably one of the hardest positions ever. Especially in the game of soccer. It's like, that is just you. You have that big net. You have girls just flying at you with the ball. That is a huge responsibility in itself, and I personally think that it is great now. It was a great run. It was a great shutout run. But I do hope that this run coming to an end relieves stress for her. It should just be, you want to block the ball to block the ball, not I want to block the ball to keep a streak going. So now she can just calm down and get back to where she needs to be.
They're just here to play ball now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what they were just talking about.
There's no streak to keep up anymore.
Yes.
They were just talking about Joey Aguilar. He threw those 2 picks. You're not perfect anymore. You don't have to worry about staying perfect. You just go to work. Put your head down, go to work.
Exactly.
Pressure's off.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to football, where the Volunteers retained their previous ranking of 15 after a heartbreaker against the Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday. Where do you guys think Tennessee should be ranked in the AP poll after this loss to Georgia?
Well, I think 15 is the spot where they need to be right now. They prove they can hang with the top 10 teams. They can give the top 10 teams a run for their money. But to be a top 10 team, you have to beat the top 10 team. So I have no problem with Tennessee at 15 right now. I think that's a good spot for them.
Okay.
I think the ceiling is very high for this Tennessee team, but 15 is a decent spot for them right now.
Yeah, Chance, I have a question for you. Had the Tennessee Volunteers taken down the Georgia Bulldogs, where do you think they would have moved in the AP rankings?
I think they swap. I think Tennessee's kind of around that 6 or 7 range, maybe 8. I think Georgia falls to 10 or 11, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they're in the spot where they need to be. They're not at some unrealistic expectation, because had they beaten them and moved up to the 6th or 7th position in the AP rankings, there just would have been a lot more pressure. And I mean, realistically speaking, that's not where they should be.
Of course, also, too, for Tennessee Volunteers, this was probably, I know they lost, this is probably still the best case scenario that could have happened was a competitive loss. Like as I was saying earlier with the Lady Vols soccer team, if they beat the Georgia Bulldogs, they would have been moved up way up there in the rankings. And then it's kind of like you're the team to beat after that, you know. With this loss, I feel like now they have a chip on their shoulder, and now they know what the level that they can play to. They know what they want to shoot for. And I think moving into these later SEC games, you know, when you go and play Florida and Bama on the road, I think that would definitely help knowing what you can do against Georgia.
I agree.
Absolutely. I don't think there's 14 teams better in the country that are better than Tennessee. I mean, the AP poll is a joke. Let me be very blunt. It's terrible. It's really bad. You're telling me LSU is the third best team in the country? I'm not buying it. They scored 20 points against Florida, and again, where DJ Lagway had 5 picks. You're telling me you can only put 10 more points up in your opponent when you have an extra 5 possessions? That's not good.
Just don't ask Brian Kelly that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Texas had 8. Arch Manning hasn't looked great. Do I think he'll get it together and figure it out eventually? Yeah, but I don't think there's 7 teams better than Texas. Illinois at 9, they haven't really played anybody. I mean, you could argue Duke, but they're 1-2 right now. They're not having a great start to the season. They're in Indiana this weekend. Indiana's favored. I don't think they're very good. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't think they're as good as the poll says they're going to be. And then you look further down the rankings, it's still a disaster. Why is Notre Dame 0-2 still ranked at 24?
Exactly, of course.
Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech are just thrown in there haphazardly. Like, it's a disaster from top to bottom. It's terrible.
Of course. Well, moving away from Tennessee, is there any team that you guys believe got snubbed in this week's rankings?
There is a team down in Stark, Vegas, and they've got some dogs. I'm talking about Mississippi State, and I worry as the Volunteers play them in 2 weeks. They're averaging 40. When is the last time Mississippi State averaged 40 points through their first 3 games? They were 2-10 last year. They looked awful. They were the joke of the SEC. Why were they even there? And now they shut out Akron State last week, 63-0. The week before, they beat the number 12 Arizona State, who has their ups and downs, but still, they were number 12 in the nation. And I just believe that with Tennessee going there in 2 weeks, it's a trap game. I worry about it. There is, you go to Davis Wade, and the cowbells are roaring. That is Joey Aguilar's first test, and we'll see how it plays out. But I believe Mississippi State should be more credited for their how they played.
Of course. Chance.
TCU's looked pretty solid throughout this first couple weeks. I mean, they just dismantled Bill Belichick in North Carolina. I think their quarterback's, he's a stud, he's a dog, he's got a lot of power, a lot of potential. So, I mean, I think TCU is certainly a team you have to look at.
Of course. When I look at this, I feel like Indiana is kind of a team that got snubbed a little bit in the rankings. I know they haven't played anyone too much yet. They go on to play Illinois this weekend, which is their first ranked matchup. On top of that is their 4th consecutive home game. But you look at their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, has a 72% completion percentage through their first 3 games with 700 yards and 11 total touchdowns. I think the rankings are all going to depend on what they do this weekend, but I believe Indiana is a team that can definitely move up if they get the win this week. Well, the Lady Vols volleyball team recently beat Rider University after being put in the top 25 on the week. Guys, how does this build momentum after being ranked and after the Lady Vols heading into SEC play?
You got it.
Yeah.
Good job. I think before we talk about their momentum, we have to highlight the girls who are bringing that momentum to the Lady Vols. We have SEC Setter of the Week, Caroline Kerr, a redshirt junior. There is SEC Defensive Player of the Week, Chelsea Sutton, and I would like to highlight former #1 recruit for the class of 2022, transfer from Nebraska, senior Hayden Kubik has recently entered the 250 career kill threshold, averaging 10.6 kills per game. And
congratulations.
they're only a couple of games into the season. I think just the entirety of the Lady Vol volleyball momentum is just on the up. People are getting excited to go to the games. And this point I'm about to make is not even player-based. But on their Instagram, they announced that the Thompson Bowling selective seating is sold out for volleyball games for the rest of the season.
There's big energy in the arena.
People are excited to watch Lady Vol volleyball, and that's incredible. They have so much momentum, being newly ranked. That's just, those girls have got to have that confidence now.
And on top of that, I would also like to congratulate Golshay Guchekin. You like that? 1,000 career digs. Thank you. 1,000 career digs has been a huge part of what this offense has been doing. She's been in the system for a while. She is a senior. But just keeping up the intensity that these Lady Vols have been bringing.
Absolutely. One stat I found notable, too, is that Tennessee is on a 7-game win streak, and in their 8 games they have played, they've only dropped 5 total sets. That's including 2 ranked matchups. While the Lady Vols play Kennesaw State in Thompson Boiling Arena tonight at 6:30. Yep, and that's your wrap up. Make sure to stay tuned where the football crew will make their picks and give their final thoughts on this week's game against UAB. In the meantime, stick around as our own Allie Campbell sits down with star volleyball player Caroline Kerr.
Hi, I'm Allie Campbell, and today I'm joined by University of Tennessee setter Caroline Kerr. Caroline is a two-time All-American and recently a gold medalist for Team USA this past summer. Caroline, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Back to your middle school, you said that you initially wanted to play volleyball because there were no volleyball banners.
Yeah.
And then by the time you were done there was a volleyball banner. What inspired you to really start that winning momentum?
Yeah, I didn't have any older siblings to like push me into volleyball. It was simply volleyball had never won a state championship, so it was like, why not?
You have two younger sisters, and they both play volleyball. And one of them is actually a collegiate setter. How cool is it to have them following in your footsteps?
Yeah, I know, I'm super proud of them. I hope that I can be a role model for them to look up to. Addie's playing in her first season at Southern Illinois right now, so I'm proud of her too.
You guys had an awesome win against Georgia Tech. It was the highest win over a ranked team at home since 2023.
Wow.
The first three sets were super competitive, decided by 2 points. But going into that fourth set, I understand that your coach, Yves Rackamwatt, sat you guys down and said that you're about to find out what this team really is in this fourth set. And you guys won by a decisive 25-13. What did you find out about your team in that fourth set?
It was really cool to see our team go out there and compete like that. I'm really proud of how we responded because that was a really good team. And it was so fun. It was so fun to be a part of out there because, you know, girls are flying around, we're making plays, and we're doing it for each other.
You were invited as one of 18 girls from ages 21 to 23 to be chosen for that team, and chosen as the only captain for said team, and you guys won gold.
Yeah.
Where does that leadership mentality come from?
I just think there's so much more in the sport of volleyball that goes beyond the play. I think it's like probably one of the greatest team sports there is, and so you have to be able to work together and make each other successful, because I can't do my job as well my teammates do their job. So we need people to like bring us together on that. It is a skill and it is really important for the game of volleyball. And I was honored that they saw that in me too. I still got 2 great seasons left to play with Tennessee, and I just want to make it the best thing for this program because it's given me.
Welcome back, ladies and gents. We have Patrick and Luca Tal back with us. And before we sign off, it is time for us to make our picks for tomorrow's game between the Vols and the Blazers. Patrick, you're up first.
I think we talked about it earlier. No doubt that UAB can score, but so can the Vols. The Blazers cannot play defense. I got the Vols 63-17, and I just want the defense to look sharp, man. I mean, we saw last week, we saw the offense could score. You need to clean up the penalties. You need to clean up the tackling. Take it out on the Blazers.
I don't think my pick needs any big explanations, but I do have the Volunteers. I got them 55-13 because after what happened last week against Georgia, Tennessee is going to be coming in with a head full of steam. They're going to be looking to make sure that they're ready for the next conference games that comes ahead. And that starts right here with the Blazers. I got the Vols 55-13. How about you, Luca Tal?
Yeah, you guys said it best. I think the Vols are going to win this one as well. The offense is just rolling too deep right now, and they're not going to stop. And I think the Tennessee defense is going to tighten up a little bit. And so I got Tennessee 62-10.
It is all Vols for us at the desk. Now let's bring it to our play-by-play crew for their game picks. Lucas, Nick, who do you have?
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. It's hard not to follow suit. I'm going to go and say it's pretty predictable to have Tennessee. I'm going to say 62-16. I think UAB is going to be able to find the end zone in garbage time, but I think throughout a majority of the game they're going to have to get comfortable having their kicker out on the field. How about you, Nick?
Looks like we're going to have a clean sweep here. I got the Vols. I'm already dressed for the occasion, UAB's funeral. I think they're going to kill them 63-7.
Back to you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Lucas and Nick. It is going to be a big game this weekend, a big crowd as well, 102,000 strong. Volunteers will be looking to get back on track in 2025. It was a pleasure to have y'all on another ride with Torch Sports, and stay tuned next week when we dive into the Vols getting back into conference action against Mississippi State. And for the latest news and highlights of the Vols and Lady Vols across campus, give the Torch Sports social media team a follow. You know where we are. We're on Instagram, TikTok at Torch Sports UTK, and X at Torch Sports_UTK, so don't miss out on all the excitement. That is all for us here today. For Patrick Falcon, Luca Tal, and everybody else here at TVC, I'm Jeremy Knopf II. Enjoy this week's game. We'll see you next time. That was Torch Sports.